No matter where you live right now, no matter your gender, age or nationality, we can all agree on something. We have fewer and fewer friends. Even before pandemic, if we had them on paper, we were not able to see them that often. Someone would say that maybe technology is ruining our relationships. Others might say that humans are growing into asocial animals. But maybe none of that is true. Today we will consult Harvard business professors to see what changed so dramatically in our lives. We will see how technology is slowly deteriorating our friendships, and we will analyze how one horrible experimented communist-era USSR tore apart the very fabric of society and how we should learn from those fatal mistakes. But I will also provide you with simple tips and tricks how you can maintain and cherish your long-lasting relationships and how I actually do it in my life, because I'm very busy. I'm Vladislav Radak, writer and mathematician, and this is Fabric of Life, a show where we try to fuse art and science to answer questions that were never asked before, and we use everything from history, math, science and classical literature. Today's question is a modern one. Why don't you have friends anymore? Let me take you on an adventure.
Hello, Instagram.
Bad boy. I'm on a mission and I won't stop. No destination, but it's worth a shot. You gotta let me go.
But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you're not, and please click the notification bell icon because I don't want you to miss my next episode. While you're watching this episode, I'm traveling the world in search for the most beautiful bookstore for one specific reason that I'm going to tell you really soon. After that, we're going to travel to Barcelona, Spain, to see how one artist created art even after his death. Maybe I will look a couple of years younger and maybe I will have shorter haircut, but magic happens, and this is Fabric of Life, where everything is possible. And today's adventure begins with one forgotten story. Exactly 100 years ago, Joseph Stalin was appointed to the post of General Secretary of Great USSR in March of 1922. One of his first orders of business was to transform a agricultural nation into industrialized power. His idea by today's standards was really bizarre. His government downsized the week from 7 to 5 days. Saturday and Sunday were abolished. In the place of weekend, a new system of intervals was introduced in 1929. The government divided workers into 5 groups and assigned each to a different day off. On any given day, 4/5 of the proletariat would show up to their factories and work while the other fifth rested. Each laborer received a colored slip of paper, yellow, orange, red, purple or green, that signified his or her group. The staggered schedule was known as neprivierka, or the continuous work week, since production never stopped. Socially, Neprirevka was total disaster. Instead of hanging out with their friends, people were forced to hang out with people that had the same color assigned as them. So, orange group was hanging out with orange and purple with purple. It was total nightmare. Managers were supposed to assign husbands and wives to the same color, but rarely did. The Communist Party saw these locations as a feature, not as a bug of the new system. The party wanted to undermine the family that they considered bourgeois institution. Lenin's widow, in a good Marxist fashion, regarded Sunday family reunions as good enough reason to abolish that day, according to E.G. Richards, the author of Mapping Time, a history of the calendar. Workers were, needless to say, upset. One of them openly complained to the workers' newspaper Pravda. What are we to do at home if the wife is in the factory, the children in school, and no one can come to see us? What is left but to go to the public tea room? What kind of life that is when holidays come in shifts and not for all workers together? There's no holiday if you have to celebrate it by yourself. The proposed no weekend work year didn't last very long. Soon, society started tearing itself apart, and officials were worried that more and more people will abandon Marxist education and that they will lose power over people. The next year, in 1939, the government added 1 day of collective rest, but the normal work week with Saturday and Sunday was not introduced until late 1940. God damn, 11 years without Saturday and Sunday. God damn, way to go, Stalin, way to go. And now, I know what you're going to ask me. Vladislav, are you Russian? No, I'm not. Just because my name is Vladislav, because I know how to say Neprierevka. Actually, I needed to Google that. Neprierevka. I even have it here saved, just in case. So, Neprierevka. You see? But this is not what you actually want to ask me. You want to ask me, Vladislav, wait a second. We don't live in Neprierevka anymore. We live in a nice capitalist society everywhere around the globe where everybody is free to do whatever they want. This is not communism. Well, we actually live in modern day Neprierevka. Here is how.
The hours in which we work, rest and socialize are becoming even more desynchronized. Nearly a fifth of global workers hold jobs with non-standard or variable hours. They may work seasonally on rotating shifts or in a gig economy driving for Uber or delivering food for Postmates. Meanwhile, more and more people on the upper floor end of the pay scale are working longer hours. Managers are staying late at work. They send emails in the middle of the night. Combine the people who have unpredictable work weeks like doctors, nurses and firefighters with those who have prolonged ones, and you get a good third of the global workforce.
Every time when I speak with my students about economy, I start with this joke that defined my generation. It goes something like this. Millennials decided to abolish working from 9 to 5 office jobs for their bosses so they can work 24/7 for them, or in this case, for creator economy, and earn pennies on the dollar. And that is absolutely true. I mean, just take a look at my example. Next to my regular job, I invest at least 40 hours per episode of this show, working basically for free for Google, who owns YouTube, not expecting anything in return. Soon, 9 to 5 will be thing of the past.
Everyone will need a side job to keep up with the explosive economy. If you're not assembling a phone in China, you're using this phone to provide free content for giants like Facebook, who owns Instagram, WhatsApp and Oculus, or TikTok. With this show, I work for Google for free. This is why no one has time for friends anymore.
Here is an example from my life. I have a good friend who works for a bank, but his rent is extremely high and he needed at one point to support his family abroad. So he was looking for one more gig economy job, and he landed delivering food with one of those modern, recently introduced, overly hyped, overweight companies. But actually, he was thinking it's quite a good deal because the payment was good and he really loved biking, we all do. And what really attracted him to this job was actually that he was able to choose his shifts freely. But after a couple of months, everything changed, and instead of him choosing shifts, he was assigned shifts that he didn't know in advance, just basically 1 day or 1 week before. Soon, we stopped hanging out because we were not able to synchronize our erratic schedules. At one point, he decided to quit his gig economy second job because nobody was able to see him anymore, and finally we were able to do some of our favorite activities together, like visiting museums from time to time that we actually needed to plan in advance.
On the other end of the labor force, there are high earners for whom the workday and work week remain somewhat more predictable. But their days and weeks have grown exceedingly long. For her 2012 book, Sleeping with Your Smartphone, the Harvard Business School professor Leslie Perlow conducted a survey of 1,600 managers and professionals. 92% reported putting in 50 or more hours work a week, and a third of those logged 65 hours or more. And then she adds that doesn't include the 20 to 25 hours per week most of them reported monitoring their work while not actually working. In her 2016 book, Finding Time, The Economics of Work-Life Conflict, the economist Heather Bauschy described the predicament in the blunt terms. Professionals devote most of their working hours to their careers. When so many people have long or unreliable work hours, or worse, long and unreliable work hours, the effects ripple far and wide. Families pay the steepest price. Erratic hours can push parents, usually mothers, out of the labor force. A body of research suggests that children whose parents work odd or long hours are more likely to evince behavioral or cognitive problems or be obese.
The more we work, more money we have. It's a simple equation, but growing number of studies suggest that more money one possesses, fewer friends he has.
As Samuel Butler, an English novelist and critic, once said, friendships are like money, easier made than kept. Economic differences can add yet another obstacle to maintaining them. Scholars and sociologists say more friends and acquaintances are now finding themselves at different points of the financial spectrum, and that makes it harder for them to maintain their relationships.
It's pretty simple. Let me give you a clear example. Let's say I work really hard and I achieved some, crazy financial success, and you and me are friends. Now I want to have something really special in my life because I think I worked really hard for that. And let's say you and me, we want to have a dinner. I, as somebody who would like to pamper myself a little bit more because I worked really hard and I have financial success, I would like to go for like a fancy wine and dine Michelin star restaurant that is not financially acceptable, for example, you, my friend. So you would probably cancel on me or, say something like, oh, I don't really feel well, maybe you can, go with somebody else, because obviously you're not going to say explicitly to me that this is not financially acceptable for you, and I might end up not going at all or actually going by myself to that restaurant. This is just one of many examples. The other ones are, travels, party, everything that we are used to do together. This is complex conundrum, and maybe I have one simple solution, but requires big sacrifice. Maybe we need to start working for a living and not live to work.
Blocking fixed hours for friends and family should be obligation for all of us. Even when you don't feel like doing so, you should push yourself to do it and make the habit out of it. When I start writing my overbearing weekly calendar, the first thing I do is block time for friends and family. I expect them to do the same. I planned our hangouts around activities that are significantly proven to strengthen the bonds of the community. We cook and eat together, visit museums, and do sports. None of those activities require extreme material wealth. I motivate my friends to read the same books together and watch the same movies, so later we can discuss them. Having no time is elusive life. Just take your phone and tell me how much time on average you spend per day. Statistics say minimum 2 hours a day, which adds to 14 hours a week. This device lured you into believing that you are in touch with your friends, when reality is that it keeps us apart.
It's almost a cliche amongst philosophers and intellectuals alike that if you want to introduce conditions for tyranny, you should sever bonds of intimate relationships and local community.
Totalitarian movements are mass organizations of atomized, isolated individuals, Hannah Arendt famously wrote in The Origins of Totalitarianism. She focused on the role of terror in breaking down social and family ties in Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union under Stalin. But we don't need secret police to turn us into atomized, isolated souls. All it takes for us is to stand by while unrestrained capitalism rips apart the temporal preservance that used us to let nurture the seeds of civil society and cherish the sadly fragile sprouts of affection, affinity, and solidarity.
When the money is gone and our material possessions are rendered meaningless, Our friends and family might be the only thing we have left. We should invest most of our time in them.